the Korean Demilitarized Zone, a place where tension hangs in the air, thick and heavy. August 1976, a simple poplar tree stood as a silent witness to the animosity between two Koreas. But this was no ordinary tree. It blocked the view between a UN checkpoint and an observation post. A seemingly minor inconvenience, but in this powder keg, even a leaf could spark a firestorm. On August 18th, American and South Korean soldiers set out to trim the tree. A routine task, or so they thought. What met them was anything but routine. North Korean soldiers, led by a captain with a chilling lack of hesitation, confronted them. Words were exchanged, but diplomacy had left the building. Violence erupted swift and brutal. The North Koreans, wielding axes and clubs, attacked. Two American officers, Captain Arthur Bonifas and Lieutenant Mark Barrett, lay dead, their lives cut short in a senseless act of violence, all because of a tree. The world watched, holding its breath. The fragile piece of the DMZ, already as thin as a spider's silk, threatened to shatter completely. The United States was in shock. Grief mingled with anger. This was not a border skirmish. It was a calculated act of aggression. The message was clear. The North Koreans were not afraid to escalate. The question was, how would the United States respond? If you're finding this story as gripping as we are, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating history. Retaliation was a given, but how? A measured response or an overwhelming show of force? The decision was made: cut down the tree. Not quietly, not under the cover of darkness. No, this would be a spectacle, a display of might designed to leave no doubt in the minds of the North Koreans. Operation Paul Bunyan, named after the mythical lumberjack, was born, a plan so audacious, so over the top, that it bordered on the absurd. The objective was simple: fell the tree. The method: overwhelming force. The message: don't test us again. Every detail was meticulously planned. Timing was crucial, the element of surprise paramount. This was not just about a tree. This was about sending a message that would resonate from the DMZ all the way to Pyongyang. The world held its breath once more, bracing for the American response. Little did they know just how far the United States was willing to go to make its point. This was not just about trimming branches anymore. This was about wielding a very sharp axe. August 21st, 1976, 3 days after the tragedy. Dawn broke over the DMZ, casting an eerie glow on the tense landscape. At precisely 7 a.m., a convoy of 23 vehicles, a steel serpent of American and South Korean might, rolled into the DMZ. The air crackled with tension. Inside the vehicles, soldiers' faces grim clutched their weapons. This was not a training exercise. This was the real deal. Their mission: protect the tree cutting team at all costs. The world watched, captivated and terrified in equal measure. Would the North Koreans retaliate? Would this be the spark that ignited a new Korean War? Section 4. A lumberjack's arsenal, the military might on display. The convoy was just the tip of the spear. Overhead, a symphony of jet engines roared. U.S. Air Force F-4, Phantom fighter jets, armed to the teeth, screamed across the sky. Behind them, B-52 bombers, capable of reducing the entire DMZ to rubble, circled ominously. Off the coast, The aircraft carrier USS Midway, a floating fortress, sat at the ready. Its decks were bristling with fighter jets and helicopters, their engines a constant hum. This was a show of force designed to intimidate, a message written in steel and firepower. On the ground, South Korean Special Forces, the elite Black Berets, fanned out, their faces hidden behind camouflage paint. They were the silent guardians, the ghosts in the forest, ready to strike if needed. Never before had such a display of military might been assembled for such a seemingly mundane task. This was not just about cutting down a tree. This was about demonstrating resolve, about showing the world that the United States would not be bullied. Section 5, Mission Accomplished. The tree falls, silence reigns. Amidst this sea of military hardware, a small group of engineers approached the poplar tree. Armed with chainsaws, they set about their work. The whine of the saws echoed through the DMZ, a surreal soundtrack to this bizarre scene. Minutes later, it was over. The tree, its symbolism far outweighing its size, lay on the ground. The engineers retreated, their job done. The world held its breath, waiting for the North Korean response. But there was only silence, an eerie, unsettling silence. The North Koreans, it seemed, had decided to back down. The message had been received. Section 6, a message sent, a crisis averted. In the aftermath of Operation Paul Bunyan, North Korea issued a statement. They expressed regret for the deaths of the American officers, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Whether this was a genuine apology or a face-saving measure, no one could be sure. One thing was clear. The operation had succeeded in its primary objective. It had demonstrated American resolve and shown the North Koreans that further aggression would not be tolerated. The crisis had been averted, but the tension remained. The DMZ once again settled into an uneasy peace. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief. Operation Paul Bunyan, for all its absurdity, had achieved its goal without a shot being fired. But it had also highlighted the fragility of peace on the Korean Peninsula, a fragility that persists to this day. Section 7, a legacy of overkill. Operation Paul Bunyan remembered. Operation Paul Bunyan stands as a testament to the absurdity of the Cold War, a conflict where even a tree could become a flashpoint. It also serves as a reminder of the human cost of conflict, the lives cut short by misunderstandings and miscalculations. The operation is often cited as an example of military overkill, a case study in using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and yet it achieved its objective without escalating into a wider war. Whether the ends justified the means is a debate that continues to this day. Operation Paul Bunyan remains a fascinating and unsettling footnote in history. It is a story of a tree, a tragedy, and the day the world held its breath. It is a story that, even today, offers valuable lessons about diplomacy, deterrence, and the ever-present threat of conflict.